my fault that I don't like pies? And not just Pinky's pies, all pies.
So she's never, ever eaten pie? Could you imagine the staff rewatching every episode to make sure of that? We must investigate. To the review cave! Out of all the conflicts we've seen from this series, I'm gonna say that Secrets and Pies is by far one of the weirdest. I suppose it does make sense since this is a Pinkie Pie episode, but even then, the context has such a bizarre nature and its execution just makes it look even more outrageous. I do mean this in both a good and a bad way, since the episode does have both good and bad qualities to it. Pinkie Pie makes a pie for Dash's latest Wonderbolt lesson and gives it to her, and Dash claims that it was a pretty good pie. However, Pinkie notices that a pie has been thrown away into the garbage, a pie that looks very similar to the one that Dash was just eating. This causes her to do a little investigating to see what's happened to the other pies that she's made for her. After putting all the clues together, she finally realizes that Dash has been lying to her about liking her pies and has been getting rid of them behind her back. With this in mind, Pinkie is now determined to catch Rainbow Dash in the act of deceiving her, one pie at a time. But exposing her seems to be a pretty difficult task. Now, because of the odyssey in the scenario, it is important that this episode would focus on Pinkie Pie, because we see the conflict through the perspective of someone who can make this setup entertaining to watch. Pinkie's character is portrayed very well with different sides of her in mind. We see her natural dedication and devotion to her friends through all of the effort that she puts in her pies, wanting Dash to feel good through something she thought that she'd enjoy. We also see her intelligence and observation skills at play. It shows how she's able to notice small details and piece them together to reveal bigger clues, which is a nice upgrade in her detective skills compared to the Triple M incident. She also engages in some nice alterations while doing the investigation, keeping the mystery segment of the episode interesting. And after discovering that Dash was lying to her, we see the more frustrated aspects of her character. When you really look at it, Pinkie has every right to be mad at Dash. She's been dishonest with her for years and disrespecting the time that she put into doing something nice for her, and all of it makes her feel personally insulted. It's not just that she was getting rid of all those pies or disregarding the work that she put into them, it's also that someone she trusted for so long and was putting time into cheering on was deceiving her. It makes Pinkie feel like Dash couldn't trust her with anything and was making up all of those nice things that she was saying about her cooking. Pinkie's motivation comes from wanting Dash to confess to her dishonesty, getting her to admit to her screw-up. In a way, she's kind of giving her a chance to be honest about the whole thing. But as the episode goes on, Dash continues to purposefully deceive her, which makes Pinkie feel more and more desperate, causing her frustration to build up into pent-up rage. She begins to slip into her own sense of madness, and it's quite fun to see how progressively it plays out. The facial expressions and the inflection in her line deliveries just make the jokes really funny and a lot of fun to watch. The entire second act of the episode is filled with good comedy. Aside from Pinkie's attempts to get Dash to confess to her dishonesty, which are really great on their own, the approach to the setup makes for some really good gags that fit the irony and desperation of Pinkie's predicament. That vision scene where Diane makes up an evil version of Dash is very fitting for her active imagination. The range of the voice acting in it is really exaggerated, making the line delivery much more energized. And the design of Evil Dash is really fittingly bland. This is supposed to be Pinkie's depiction of an evil Dash, so it's obviously going to get the bad OC treatment. It has an overly sharp form, and the lack of detail in the color is highly noticeable. And the laser vision is just a really crazy bonus. It's obviously a bad design, but its intentional lack of creativity fits the tone of Pinkie's description and her assumption. There's also some other nice jokes in the episode as well. Seeing Pinkie hauled away strapped to a bed has all sorts of fun implications added to it. The unamused reaction on Pinkie's face to Dash covering up her lies is simply spot on, and there's even a well-timed background line from Applejack. Some people have criticized how the faces are too exaggerated, but they're really not that bad. Sure, the faces have a lot of expression to them, but they have a level of restraint and proper amount of detail that keeps them from getting too ridiculous. Let's face it, no episode is gonna have as many scary faces as Party Pooped. There is one problem with the episode though, and unfortunately, it's a big problem. This episode makes Dash look like a really dishonest jerk. She's acted absent-minded before, but this particular incident really has no rhyme or reason to it. She spent years on end deceiving one of her best friends, disrespecting them through a lack of trust. And she's completely rude about all of the work that she must have known that Pinky was putting into those pies. I mean, her very first scene in the episode is her throwing away the pie in the trash. Trash that was being taken out right in front of Pinky, despite the episode saying that she donates the pies monthly. The very first act that Dash takes in this episode is not compatible with the moral that it's going for. What makes this so annoying is that Dash makes the situation completely complicated when all she had to do was tell Pinky that she doesn't like pies. It would have prevented years of deception, and I'm pretty sure that Pinky would have been okay with it. But nope, she has to do a bunch of bullshit and needlessly make this whole thing hard on herself. She has to fling them across the city or feed them to Tank, which isn't that another thing added to her list of actions as a horrible pet owner? I mean, she literally went out of her way to build that convoluted contraption transporting the pie to his feeding bowl. Considering how desperate she gets, she had to have understood that Pinky put a lot of work into everything that she does. She continues to be completely dishonest about it and make Pinky continuously waste her time on something that never actually mattered to her. Even the way the episode ends just feels like a really lame cop-out. Dash decides that the only way to make up with Pinky is to eat this disgusting whatever it is right in front of her. Okay, now she really is making this needlessly complicated. Dedication is one thing, but she's literally gonna risk fatally poisoning herself over a problem that could have easily been solved ages ago. But of course Pinky stops her by coming up to her and claiming that she now knows why Dash lied about the pies. She did it because she wanted to make her feel happy. Yeah, that doesn't change the fact that she was being dishonest with you for who knows how long. Even the way it's shown doesn't make it look like it was ever on Dash's mind at all, and she's just kind of going along with it. Maybe that's not what happened, but because of how made up on the spot it is, it just feels like an excuse. And the moral is basically, don't be afraid to be honest with your friends. A lesson that's been expressed in much better ways in other episodes of the show. And while thinking about this episode, I thought of an even more fitting moral that they could have gone with. Like, what if Pinky was simply making too many pies? It could have been that Dash was just sick of getting them all the time and didn't know how to tell Pinky to stop. Maybe Dash wouldn't have told her anything because she wouldn't know how. This could have been a clever turn of events in which the episode would end in a way that both Dash and Pinky learned something. Dash would learn to be straightforward, and Pinky would learn to not constantly cater to someone, because of how overwhelmed it would make them feel. It would be a good way for both of them to learn something, and it really would have made Dash look a lot less like an idiot. So Secrets and Pies was an episode that was indeed really weird in both good and bad ways. Diane really makes this episode a lot of fun to watch, and the comedy both visually and verbally is certainly fun too. But because of how ridiculous Dash acts and how needlessly complicated her actions and motivations are, it ends up feeling really dumb half the time. So it's more or less a half and half episode. So I guess you can see it for yourself and take it for what it's worth. MisAnthro Pony, over and out.